Do we burn it? Turn it into a chicken coop? A storage shed? Roll it off a cliff? Scrap metal? No, I got an idea. Let's fix it. Bad idea. This started as a quick and easy project with just an exhaust leak and changing an exhaust manifold gasket, which led to broken bolts, which led to tearing the top half of the engine apart, which led to the truck sitting for about 3 months with the engine exposed, blocking my driveway. So what you're going to see here is we got the cylinder heads back on and the engine painted the day before, and now we're in the reassembly process. Working on the engine of the truck, trying to get it running. I mistakenly thought it'd be a few hours to put it back together. It took me about 2 hours to take the heads off and take it all apart, but several trips to the hardware store for parts, and in fact this morning was the 3rd trip. Now we're going back to work. So this is what we're starting with. An aggressive 1985 F-250. I've done some work to this, a little here, a little there, but by the end of today we're going to have this engine running. So we're going to start with replacing these fuel lines that have been damaged, and we'll start at that. All right, let's get these fuel lines replaced. I have some special fuel line here for fuel. Make sure you get the right fuel line. You don't want to use heater hose. Expect this to bite me a little bit. I've been on there for a while. Oh, got some fuel in it still. That's always fun. All right, one side done. And connect it on. Don't forget the hose clamp. And it's always good to make them on the right side the right way, although it depends on where they end up at. So we don't want to tighten this up and then not be able, once we actually bolt this into where it goes and connect it to the carburetor, we can't get to the hose clamp again to take it off. Since we're not saving these lines, just cut it. Haha! Success! And we got the fuel line on. Alright, next thing we're gonna do is, this is all just kind of sitting on here. And we eliminated the EGR valve on this 460, so I had to make a special plate, which is pretty rough, but it'll seal off the idea is it'll seal off some of these holes in the intake that were for the EGR valve, which is right here. I still have it. Pull this fuel line over here. Let's see if I can remember how this went. I believe it went something like this. There's a clip down here. So we're gonna put this in and we're just gonna leave it loose for right now. We'll tighten everything up. Once it's down, there's another clamp on the frame I need to put on to hold these fuel lines in place. So for right now, we're just gonna kind of leave that loose in there. All right, we got another hose here that needs to be clamped down. Some tight. Hopefully those don't leak. If not, I got some stop leak we'll put in there. Carburetor. Next thing you want to do is put this engine on top dead center. Set on one, use the socket to turn the engine over to set this at top dead center. So we're now at top dead center. We can drop in the distributor next. So when we drop the distributor in, it's really important to have the engine lined up on number one. I took the engine apart and figured it's all coming apart anyway. So when I pulled the distributor out, I didn't mark anything, but there's a white mark that somebody made on the distributor and on the rotor at some point. So I'm gonna assume that's number one. And since we're set at top dead center, we're gonna turn the rotor around and drop it in and see what happens. If not, and it doesn't run and there's problems, we'll play with it or move it around, whatever we need to do. So also I noticed on here was that's marked as front. Somebody marked that as front. So this will drop in. It's important to get this located right. We've got a vacuum advance on this distributor. If we don't get this dropped in right, this may be locked in and not be able to turn to adjust the timing. Or it may not even go in all the way. So we want to make sure this is dropped in somewhat correctly. And again, if it's not, then we'll figure it out later. So the oil pump drive shaft is not quite lined up where it needs to be. There we go. So it takes a little bit of fiddling to get it to drop in. And that should be probably close enough. Again, if that's not correct, we can adjust it. So this is coming together pretty good. There's a distributor hold down, which I'm gonna put in kind of loose, but again, this is good chance it's gonna have to come out again, so there's no point in really putting it in and tightening it down, although it looks like I may have lost it, so I might be looking for another one of those. When I took this apart, there's the motor mount nuts. There should be 4 of them. There was 3 holding the engine in, and these were all hand tight. They weren't even tightened up. I could take them off with my hand when I took this apart. So one good thing to look for when you're buying a used car, you never know who's had their hands on it or what they've done. So that was a surprise for sure. The engine's just sitting in there right now. I'll put those nuts on and tighten that down later, if I remember to. Maybe we'll forget. The engine's fortunately heavy enough, I don't think it's gonna go anywhere. So even though they're only hand tight before, probably pretty safe. So next, I'd like to get this power steering. We've got a power steering line down here. You can see it's leaking. This line right here, lots of leaks. There's another one here. This one looks like it's probably leaking a little bit here. Probably could use to be replaced, but I'm not gonna do it. That should be good enough for now. For what this is, it'll be fine. So for this power steering hose, I actually, the original hose had one of these clamps on it that didn't work too good. I looked around, actually found a clamp on the ground right in front of my garage. So there's a freebie right there. That's a score. This hose is pretty stiff. It's fighting me quite a bit going on there. Yeah, it's probably good enough. Oh, where'd it go? Lost it. It went down. There it is. Whew. I was gonna have to look around the ground and find another one. You can see I pressure washed this truck multiple times in the last year, and there is still grease all over everything. It's just the nature of old vehicles, I guess, or ones that aren't maintained very well. The engine leaked oil. I found out later that this oil pan came off of an engine that, and maybe the engine out of this truck, but it threw a rod. The oil pan was welded back together and JB welded. The holes that were left were JB welded, and that's what was causing the oil leak. So it's been, there wasn't a single part of this truck that needed to be that didn't need to be addressed somehow. So here is the exhaust manifold, and as you can see, the bolts are very rusted and very broken. And as it turns out, I have every tap I need except for, I have every tap I could ever want except for the one I need, which is 7/16 for this. So I'll be taking another trip to the hardware store for that. I'm just going to take the torch. We're just going to cut these off. We'll drill it and tap it. So the bolts are cut off and then some. Next thing is going to be to clean this up. We'll drill it out and I'll put a stud in there and cut it down. And then this can get reinstalled. So after a half hour of drilling on this, all I did was dull 2 drill bits. I think these studs are probably hardened. So we're going back to the torch to try and take care of this. You can actually almost see the threads in there. I'll get a tap, we'll tap them out. I'm gonna drill out some of these holes here. And we should be ready to go to put this on. So I was actually able to get these holes tapped out. After using the torch. So I'm going to put some all thread in there and I'll have to cut it down to size. Oh, I just took the all thread, I cut it, threaded it in. You can see this one here, you can see goes all the way through, and this will actually keep spinning. So if you try to put a nut on here, this is just going to keep turning. So what I'll end up doing is I'll just put a standard nut on the front to help lock that down so it won't spin. The other one is a closed hole, so there's no way for it to go anywhere once it goes through. So that one you can tighten up as much as you want, and it's not going anywhere. So we're about ready to just put this on the truck now. Back out on the tailgate, I found a nut inside the truck. I don't know what it's there for. I don't know what it goes to. I hope I don't need it later, but it's the right size. It fits on there, and that stud is now locked down. So here we go. This is the whole reason for taking the whole engine apart, was the right exhaust manifold had an exhaust leak. So in putting this exhaust manifold on this side, I got one bolt there way in the back that will not go in all the way. So the right thing to do would probably be to pull it out and re-tap the hole to make sure the threads are good. But in the interest of time and money, I'm going to pull it out and just cut the end off, and we'll shorten it a little bit and bolt it back in. So I don't know if the threads don't go all the way in. I'm not exactly sure where the issue is, but I'll get it fixed real quick here. And these are the plugs I'm putting in there, SP502. These are platinum plugs. They didn't cost that much, so they should do the job. So when you're working on an older vehicle, it's important to gap the spark plugs. The gap is that distance right here. And so I've got a spark plug gapper. The emission sticker on the truck says 0.042 to 0.046. I've got a measurement on the gapper that's 0.045. Let's see if I can get it in focus here. 4.5. So that's what I'm going to use. And you want to make sure this is kind of tight. It takes a little bit of force to get it in and out. So that's good. So we'll go through and check the gap on all these. They're typically gapped about the same, but you never know. It's always good to check them. Sometimes they get dropped, the gaps get closed up. Sometimes they're not properly gapped from the factory, so it's always good to check them. If you need to widen or narrow the gap, you need a tool, and that's what this prong is for. Just stick it in like this, and you can widen the gap by pushing down or shorten it by pushing up like that. So you just want to adjust them to make sure the plugs are gapped right. Fuel filter's getting fuel, should have fuel going to the carburetor. Seem to have a bad connection with the battery. Oh, back on again. Back in business. Good. I think even the choke is working. By the time we got the engine running, it was too late to go up to the mountains to do an off-road trip. So I threw a bunch of camping gear in the back of the truck and did a backyard camp out. So we found out the dash lights don't work. I think they worked at some point, but they sure as heck don't work now. Four-wheel drive works. Oh, I gotta put it back in gear. Whoops. All right, now we're moving. I think my driveway's the driveway. Here we go, right here. I'll pull right up here. A little bit dark, but this thing just climbs right up this hill with no problem. Try to put the truck against the hill, the front tires against the hill, back up a little bit because these have a tendency to have the parking fall in the transmission brake and the parking brake go out. But the truck ran great all the way around the block. The lights work, turn signals work. We got a lot more stuff to fix on it still.
Yep, but it still works.
But it does work and run.
The fire's burning.
If you had to rely on me for survival camping, we'd all be in trouble.
Will you bring a blowtorch and gasoline?
Yep.
Then we'll be fine.
I can fix a truck though, mostly. We got an 85 F-250, put the engine back together, got it running again. It still has lots of issues, but we got it running. We're out here having a nice camp out in the backyard. I got some plans to do some off-roading and some other things with it. So I'm signing off, but go out there and find something and fix it.